is an influential philosophical tradition. Its practitioners have from antiquity claimed it to be the precursor to profound powers. And I am a Hermetic, Kabbalistic alchemist. I believe my mission in this life is to absorb and share knowledge. I mean, the universe's intelligence is about the elements. It's all numbers, shape, color, sound, and vibration. As this relates to the astral, mental, physical, and of course the spiritual and Akashic plane. It's all about the hidden occult mysteries, and this is what I need to teach. It is the key to electric, magnetic, electromagnetism, gravity, and immortality. It's my job to harmonize ancient Eastern and Western culture with philosophy, the tarot, the Kabbalah, and the Hermetic tree of life. This documentary aims to explore, explain, and express the basic alchemical principles, including the alchemical transmutation process. Together we will take a deep dive into alchemy's origins and its pivotal figures. We will define the difference between alchemy and modern science, between science-based and spiritual-based alchemists. We will debate the alchemical connection to the elements and to the cosmos, as well as provide insight into how an individual, a real, cognizant, coherent person, can activate profound powers through well-known Hermetic practices. The defining objectives of alchemy are varied, however historically, have typically included the creation of the fabled philosopher's stone, the ability to transform base metals into noble metals of gold and silver, and the development of an elixir of life which confers youth and longevity. Alchemy is recognized as a proto-science that contributed to the development of modern chemistry, biology, physics, and medicine in general. Let's start by discussing whether alchemy is a pseudoscience or just the forerunner of the natural sciences.
Well, I just feel so blessed that I've been given the great gift of alchemy. At the start, you do have to learn it, and you do have to do routines and learn your rituals, but once it becomes a part of your life and you switched on your energy body, then you're just naturally part of the universe, and there's an inner and an outer flow that you keep balance with. It's a bit like surfing. You don't actually have to go and do a ritual or anything. You just adjust to the environment that you're in.
Spiritualizing matter. These two words. The spiritualizing of matter is what life undertakes. And alchemy is the process by which spirit, this let's call it the universal content, seeks to inform itself into matter, seeks to imprint itself. Matter is by nature resistant, inert, although at a quantum level that's not true, but for the sake of for the tangible 3D world, matter is inert and dense and resistant to influence. Spirit is its exact opposite. It is energetic, penetrative. So these two forces meet in the world, the masculine and the feminine. This is the source of alchemy, polarity, and the two poles. We see it in the yin and yang in many ancient symbols throughout human culture. And this spiritualization of matter takes place through this imprinting principle. And it does so in 7 stages. And life itself goes through 7 stages to reach what we call the culmination of this journey. And this journey takes place in 7 kingdoms. These 7 kingdoms are the journey from matter to spiritualized matter, where matter itself is been so transformed, so alchemized, to be able to express the entirety of spirit without being destroyed.
In my daily practice, I use a synthesis of ancient esoteric non-touch healing modalities that accelerates the body's innate abilities to balance and heal at all levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Each movement triggers an alchemical transmutation of energies, which gives the healer the ability of mystical transformation and the highest level of order that enables problem solving and is life-changing, as well as the ability to become unlimited creator. I call it magic or miracle.
Alchemical knowledge has presented itself to me in amazing ways in my life, and I was blessed. From the age of 12, all I really cared about was surfing. So 12 to 18, I literally watched every sunrise in the ocean and every sunset from the ocean. So I learned about the cycles of nature, the tides, the winds, the waves, and just the way our world works, an in-breath and an out-breath. Today, there's all sorts of ways I incorporate alchemy into my life. I watch the sunrise every morning still, and I give thanks in a prayer of gratitude for everything and for the day, and I send love to the world, and I do the same also at sunset.
So alchemy and the alchemical transformation process is really at the heart of energy medicine. And in the context that I do my work and working with people, it's really about developing that transformation of magic and being connected to the earth medicine, and then using that throughout your life as a way of being.
So the difference between modern science and alchemy is they just haven't quite met in the middle yet. I personally believe at some stage in the future they will merge into a one. Science is getting closer to that aspect. It's starting to figure out deeper aspects through quantum mechanics and those kinds of things. And eventually I think the two will merge into one. It may take some time, and it's a matter of science really starting to allow itself to progress further and understand the deeper levels and aspects of creation and reality, be able to really open up to the more spiritual aspect of science, and that I think at some stage they will merge into one.
Alchemy is a forerunner for many aspects of chemistry, and yes, alchemy is the occult or the hidden law of the magical realms. To me, it's the key to unlock the mysteries in this world with the knowledge, awareness, and comprehension of wisdom that supports my intuition and my journey. The essential difference between alchemy and modern science is that alchemy is regarded as mysticism, like a bunch of old, bearded, smelly hermits in robes cooking up weird stuff in the kitchen. as opposed to scientists being clean and sharp and well dressed in shiny white lab coats at the cutting edge of technological breakthroughs in chemistry, biology, physics, and the health and food industry. It's hilarious because one of the great founding fathers of modern science was Sir Isaac Newton, a well-known and highly successful alchemist.
So the major difference between alchemy and modern science is that alchemy is subjective thinking, and which really sinks you into your heart, the heart of the matter, whereas modern science is all about hypotheses and more of a way of thinking around thought process, and we think this is what it is. So alchemy is actually the foundation of life and that transmutation process.
Well, modern science and alchemy have always been traditionally portrayed as being polar opposites, but in fact they're not really, because they're based on the scientific method. It's just that one, science looks at things that are out in the material world and they put things under a microscope, whereas alchemy is putting your soul under a microscope.
Before we come to science and modern science, I'd like to go back to organized religion itself, which has, shall we say, been around for the last 2,000 years. And back in that day, there were alchemists as well, and many forms, although those sciences were hardly known. They were more belonging to a more esoteric, hidden groups, shall we say, or orders in the world. The human education was at a very, very low level and restricted mostly to its local world and its local nature. So there wasn't a lot of extension into the worlds of metaphysics at all. So it could largely go unnoticed, its existence. However, with the advent of religion, we see the rising of the word heretic, which was anybody branded with an alternative belief system to the popularized one that organized religion, and this is common to all Judeo-Christian religions, you know, the Christianity, Islam, and the Jewish religion. So these organized religions purported a version of the truth in order to support the spiritual underpinnings of this belief system, which we call a religion in this case. And during this last 2,000 years, the alchemists have also had to learn to hide many of their findings and their work from these authorities because of the very obvious risk of persecution. Modern science is no different. The persecution that modern science offers is ridicule, because people no longer need to be exiled or burnt at the stake or killed if they're uncomfortable. They just have to be ridiculed, which fulfills the same purpose. Now, modern science is a very wonderful phenomenon that's come about from the evolution or the maturity of mankind's mind, or his left brain hemisphere, in order to be able to tangibly observe, decode, and order the world around him, which is a very important step in human consciousness and science. However, the science that we've called that for the last 300 years is a very small niche of this world's potential spectrum and the realities that exist inside it. And one must not forget that they only deal with a very small spectrum, just like we ourselves, with our five senses, only perceive the tiniest spectrum of the electromagnetic frequency, which is gigantic, spans from the smallest to the slowest to the fastest gamma rays, and we see nothing but 2% of that spectrum, which for us is real. Everything outside of that is invisible. So the alchemists, you might say, had a much wider scope that they were dealing with. They were dealing with multiple dimensions, the effects of causality, energetic causality, into physicality, and learning how to mold with, again, as I mentioned earlier, the exercise of willpower, which gives mankind dominion over the quantum world, as we would call it today, which is responsive to intent and responsive to human thought. The human thought can mobilize energies at the quantum level, which can, if given enough encouragement and magnification, can lead to physical world manifestations. So alchemy had to hide itself simply to survive.
A philosophical movement named Transcendentalism emerged in the early 1800s in New England. At its heart was a debate on the belief that religion should focus on emotional experiences instead of through the application of pure logic and reasoning. This belief inherent on the understanding that people are good when not exposed to the corrupting nature of society and its various institutions. The followers of the New Age dogma perceive divine and cosmic context, knowledge, and events in the present and dismiss the existence of a mythical heaven and other planes. In line with this belief, the alchemical transcendental theory theorized the transmutation of lead into gold was a metaphor. It only characterized the deliverance of the individual or the eradication of evil and the expansion of good, which highlighted personal awareness, the promise of a rebirth of sorts, and the practitioners joining with a celestial or divine source. Interestingly, the transcendental theory was successfully opposed by alchemical researchers due to the large amounts of historical documentation and varied artworks, which supported and depicted alchemists performing laboratory-based potion making in the physical realm. As many ancient alchemists dedicated extended periods of their lives and their attitude to these pursuits. Alchemy is believed to have originated in Atlantis and then moved to Egypt. The Egyptian beliefs in life after death and the mummification procedures that have been developed gave rise to rudimentary chemical knowledge and a goal of immortality. If you could purify the human vessel of carnal energies and selfish desires, perhaps you could attain immortality. The Atlantean Thoth, who migrated to Egypt after the Great Flood, later became the Adept King, named by the Greeks Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes has several alchemical original documents attributed to him, most importantly, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. The wisdom contained within the Emerald Tablets are the foundation of the ancient mysteries, containing much of the hidden heritage, history, ancient relics of this earth, planets, and our solar system. The Emerald Tablet are said to be the alchemist's equivalent to the Bible, Torah, and Quran, and has been described as the source of all things alchemical. It shares the deepest truths regarding the magical science. The Emerald Tablets consist of 12 distinct emerald green tablets formed from a substance created through alchemical transmutation. It is said that it knows all that man has ever known, shall know, and will know. The writer is Thoth, the Atlantean, who was a priest-king or pharaoh, who founded a colony of ancient Egypt after the sinking of the mother country. He was the builder of the Great Pyramids of Giza. To some 16,000 years, between 52,000 BC and 36,000 BC, Thoth ruled the ancient race of Egypt. Thoth was an immortal being. He had conquered death through the aspects of alchemy, that is, the philosopher's stone, to transcend life where one's memories are not destroyed through death and rebirth.
Thoth is certainly one of the more mythical and controversial figures in alchemy, and some people don't even think that he existed, but they attribute his sayings, the Emerald Tablets, to the Egyptian priest. But Thoth, or what I would like to call him as truth, is mathematical universal laws. He's the God that actually maps out the universe. Those things don't change. So even if he didn't exist as an avatar in ancient Egypt, he exists as a consciousness which can create himself on certain levels. So he's as real as you and me, even realer, because it's the universe, and that's what holds it all together, is his laws.
During the later ages, the spirit of Thoth passed into the bodies of humans in the manner described in the tablets. In one of his most well-known beings is Hermes Trismegistus, the messenger of the gods. In this incarnation, he left the writings known to modern occultists as the Emerald Tablet, and later a far lesser exposition of the ancient mysteries. The tablets were left in the Great Pyramid in the custody of the Amun-Ra priests. At around 1300 BC, ancient Kem, or Egypt, was in turmoil, and many delegations of priest kings were sent to the four corners of the world. Among these were the pyramid priests, who carried with them the emerald tablets as a talisman by which they could exercise authority over the less advanced priestcraft of other races descended from the Atlantean and Hyperborean colonies. The legendary tablets were understood to give the bearer authority from Thoth and the other gods. The groups of priest kings and priestess queens bearing the emerald tablets emigrated to South America via South Africa, where they found a flourishing race, the Mayas. After the conquest of the Mayas by the Spaniards under the control of the Vatican, the treasures of the temple were supposedly forgotten. However, we knew that they were taken back to Spain and consequently onto other areas of the world, particularly the Vatican. Indian or Vedic alchemy was strongly related to metallurgy. In fact, Nagarjuna, renowned Indian metallurgist and alchemist, spent a great deal of his life in the search for immortality and was proficient in the extraction of iron and mercury through Indian alchemical practices. Metals were worked with and steel was invented. By 332 BC, Alexander the Great, the Macedonian king, had conquered Egypt. It is believed that Alexander himself discovered and removed the emerald tablets in and from the tomb of Hermes. At this same time, many of the greatest Greek philosophers began to study their Egyptian counterparts. Ancient Greek Macedonian views on how matter is made up of the four elements of nature, fire, air, water, and earth, were merged with the Egyptian sacred science. The Greeks were to study alchemy at the legendary Library of Alexandria. However, this came to an abrupt end when a Christian mob, led by Roman appointed Bishop Theophilus, burned down what remained of the great library, destroying all relevant works on alchemy and the great sciences. Wei Buyang, a notable writer and alchemist of the Eastern Han dynasty, wrote The Kingship of the Three, a manuscript which contained the first chemical recipe for gunpowder. Unlike the Greeks and the Western form of alchemy, the Chinese version developed independently within China, practiced by Taoist monks. The monks pursued both the outer and inner elixir of life, the outer being the minerals, plants, and animals which could spiritualize the body and prolong life, and the inner elixir of life, the use of meditation and exercise techniques such as qigong and breathing to enhance and stimulate the qi life force of the body. Lao Tzu, a legendary philosopher and alchemist, bestowed upon Chang Tao Li, the first Taoist master, a mystical treatise which allegedly led to the latter successfully creating an elixir of life. Islamic alchemy had much in common with the science of chemistry and mathematics. Gerber, an alchemist chemist and religious philosopher, was simply known as the Wise One. He was born into Mesopotamia and is seen as the greatest of all alchemy adepts following Hermes. Al-Kindi, an Arab philosopher, physician, music theorist, and polymath mathematician, as well as Avicenna and Uzbekistan, Persian polymath, physician, astronomer, philosopher, writer, and the father of early modern medicine, both refuted transmutation during the Islamic Golden Age. Rhazes, an Arabian alchemist, physician, chemist, philosopher, became famous for his alleged practical displays in the art of transmutation of the base metals into gold, and also his statements concerning how the planets influence the metallurgical formations of crystals and metal structures under the Earth's surface. In 1144 AD, Spain was divided between the Muslim and the Christian leaders and their respective cultures. Robert of Chester, Arabic-Latin translator, composed the Decomposition Alchemy, the earliest dated tome of a Western alchemical treatise. Roger Bacon, medieval philosopher and a Franciscan friar, wrote in 1266 the Opus Magus, and the Opus Tertium contained information of the natural sciences, philosophy, and alchemy. Between 1508 and 1512 AD, Michelangelo, Italian painter, sculptor, architect, and poet of the High Renaissance, was commissioned to paint the Sistine Chapel ceiling by the Vatican. The pivotal design, the creation of Adam, an image that depicted God reaching across to make a connection to man. It contains a hidden alchemical symbol. It is the shape of a human brain outlined by God's billowing shroud. The image depicted that God's greatest gift to creation is consciousness. In 1643, Sir Isaac Newton was born and was described by many as a super-rationalist saint, a logical mathematician, physician, astronomer, theologian, and author. However, what is not known widely is his secret obsession with alchemy and his extensive compositions on the subject.
Don't get me started about Isaac Newton. We'll be here all day. It's actually criminal, I think, the way that alchemists have been treated in the past, ostracised or vilified. My favourite alchemist actually is John Dee. He was brilliant. He was the original 007. He was like a polymath. He was into optics. In fact, the 007 is, the original one is him, and the 007 is actually a spyglass that he's holding up. But he was the advisor to Queen Elizabeth I, and he's a bit like a Merlin character, a bit like Faustus, and he engineered the English Empire using Enochian magic, alchemy, angels, all that kind of stuff. Actually summoned angels to destroy the Spanish Armada that was coming to stop what was the fledgling British Empire. So he's probably the most fascinating alchemist I've come across. But he fell into disrepute at the end because he felt that he had reached the end of material knowledge, so he needed to get angelic assistance. So he had the biggest library at Mortlake, and he used to do a lot of experiments there, and he developed the Enochian magic system, which is high-level alchemy. So he's my favourite, but he was a bit ostracised at the end. Otherwise, you'd all know about him, and he'd be like Michelangelo, because he was that kind of a genius, with the way that he knew statecraft and optics and mathematics and everything else.
By the 16th century, European alchemists had separated into two distinct groups. The first focused on the discovery of new compounds and their reactions, properties and functions, leading to what is now the sciences of medicine, chemistry, biology, metallurgy, and physics. The second continued to look at the more spiritual metaphysical side of alchemy, continuing the search for immortality and the transmutation of base human nature into its highest potential to allow the fusion of the human being with their spiritual source, that is to become spirit in human form. In modern times, alchemy has become a focal point for various kinds of mysticism. The old alchemical literature continues to be scrutinized by modern science, in particular the physics discipline, for evidence. What is often misunderstood, however, is what lies at the heart of alchemy, the alchemical transmutation process. Carl Gustav Jung argued that the alchemical process was the transformation of the impure soul, that is lead, to the perfected soul, which is gold, and that this was the true meaning of the alchemical transformation and the metaphor. Jung is right, of course, as when you really get into alchemy, you start to sense, to hear, to feel, to see the infinite connections through civilizations, empires, cultures, and all the philosophies, through architecture, through religions, mathematics, geometry, art, biology, physics, chemistry, dance, poetry, archaeology, astrology, and astronomy, and even through literature. And this is how it's been explained through the whole of time by the great ones.
Carl Jung's individuation process reminds me of Taoism in the fact that they cultivate their energies, and it's an ongoing process. It doesn't end. And with him, he was saying the same thing. He used the word the subconscious or the collective unconscious. Really, that was his word for God, but he couldn't say that because, as we know, scientists weren't really allowed to speak their mind. But I totally agree with him that it's an unending process. And he himself actually went through many years. He even kept a gun in his office drawer for a number of years because he wasn't sure whether he could balance with the incredible pressures. But once he came through that, people that were around him would say they felt like they were out in the universe, like the walls would be dissolving, because for him the boundaries were very transparent.
Carl Jung also wrote about the sacred marriage between the sun and the moon, and argued that the stages of alchemy, the blackening, the whitening, the yellowing, and the reddening, could be taken as symbols of personal growth. Carl Jung's hypothesis is brilliant and beautiful because it is sacred marriage between the soul of God, gold, fire, electricity, and the sun, and the lunar goddess, silver, water, love, magnetism, man and woman, masculine and feminine. Now let's discuss the physical, chemical-based full-stage process that is often associated with the alchemical transmutation. Stage 1 being the prima materia, which in itself is a starting material often described as matter that is required for the creation of the fabled philosopher's stone. Science-based alchemists compare this process to the anima mundi, which has a fundamental connection with all living beings and relates to the world in much the same way as a spirit or soul being joined with the human body. Stage 2 is distillation. This practice converts a solution of chemical substances into 2 or more distinct and purified product mixes by utilizing the methodology of boiling or condensation. The universal truths of expansion and contraction are at play in this process. For the combination of the elements earth, water, air, and fire. Stage 3 is calcination. This practice uses a thermal treatment upon the purified product mixes to remove any further impurities and volatile substances. For example, poisoned air, phlegm, or thick sulfur. Stage 4, the quintessence, also referred to as the 5th element, the ether, and in the physical realm, the philosopher's stone. Most alchemists believe that this final substance of the alchemical transmutation process results in a medium that is akin to a divine material or instrument.
I feel this transmutation at both the physical and metaphysical levels, and it's truly amazing the way they interact with each other, and just that, in a sense, the physicality of who we are is such a small part of who we really are. A great example for me was when I finished investment banking. I had this sudden urge to do a fast, and I found some literature through a really random kind of way that convinced me to do a 10-day fast with colonics and just on basically cleansing myself. And the effect it had was astounding. I was just light. I was pure light, and insects were swarming all over me. I was hugging people. I was drinking peppermint tea. It changed my worldview. A voice in my head was telling me, don't buy shares in companies that are, involved in mining. I mean, this was back a long time ago. So it's truly amazing, and you can feel this interconnection. You're coming into this relaxed place. It's affecting your emotional body. You feel safe, and your mental body. It's coming to alignment with your heart. So they all relate to each other. And for me, this really is the time where we're moving from the awareness of physicality to an awareness that everything is light. It's been proven scientifically for a long, long time now. There's no distinction between space-time and matter. Everything is just this sea of energy, and this information is available to us now to really fully express who we are in this knowledge as multidimensional beings. So it's an astounding time to be here.
The source code for life is energetic in nature, and physicality is its expression in 3D. This whole kingdom of nature, the mineral, the vegetable, and the animal, and the human, and those beyond, all have a physical component, and therefore all metaphysics operates within this field as well. To highlight the metaphysics is important because this is causal. What we refer to as the physical is merely effect. There are no effects, there are no causes in the physical world. It is merely a world of effects, nothing more. All causes in this world are metaphysical in nature. And anything we see on this planet that is happening is caused by metaphysical, is the cause of which is the metaphysical. Alchemy takes place within two types of elements, the living and the non-living elements. The purpose of alchemy is to transform or transmute living substance into its more refined form. In order to explain this better, we have to understand that material nature, like minerals and metals and things, do not have their own, they have their makeup, but they do not have an inherent purpose or meaning outside of their own formation. Whereas living substance has a blueprint connected to it through its etheric field. And that living substance contains its potential.
So relationships and connections between individual life forms is a form of alchemy. And this is really the forming of one into two and two into one.
Just as an alchemist transmutes lead into gold, we can also create everlasting change for ourselves. Universal energy healing triggers the alchemical transmutation process by correcting energy's imbalances and blockages, removing used up or diseased energy and replacing it with the fresh prana, universal life energy. It is my belief that an alchemist lives within each of us, and all we need to do is connect to our souls within.
Well, I've always taken the metaphysical approach to alchemy because I found that the approach of trying to make gold in your lab is a path for suckers. Not only that, if you actually did make gold, I suppose the price of gold would go down. But for me, I've got enough food, I live in a good land, so I don't have to worry about those kind of things. But the real gold for me is the inner gold of being able to be linked to the universe. And that's something that money can't even buy, a joy and happiness and sense of wonder.
The scope of work of today's mathematicians seems more controlled by organizations they work for example, a university. I can imagine this is due to the unexplainable point where the logic of maths and science hits the magic, well, the quantum field, and no longer makes sense to modern mathematicians due to the inability to be repeated in a reliable manner. Four elements are the basic building blocks of alchemy. They are fire, air, water, and earth. There is the fifth element, the ether, the etheric, combination of all four elements. The elements each have a distinct relationship with a different body and the world. The earth to the physical body and the material world, the water to the astral plane and the emotional world, air to the mental body and to the mental world, fire to the spirit and to the spirit world. Building the elements within each of the bodies gives the alchemist inner strength through visualization, meditation, and concentration to create movement throughout the inner spheres, planes, and worlds. This prepares the alchemist for the fifth element, the quintessence.
I'd like to use the word quintessence in its essential spiritual form in regards to humanity. And there are two words. There's a word called the Argoades, and also another being called Adam Kadmon. You've heard of Adam, the first one, Adam and Eve, the first Garden of Eden creatures that were our progenitors. So Adam was the first man, Eve was the first woman, and Adam Kadmon is a name sometimes given to the final man. So the Adam Kadmon stands for the fulfillment of consciousness in matter, the seventh kingdom. And the quintessence is this. It is matter which has, under the relentless bombardment of spirit and spirit's penetrative force, has become transparent ultimately to it, like water or a diamond. A diamond is probably the greatest example I can show of the mineral, of the quintessence of the mineral kingdom. And strangely enough, it also happens to be the highest prized mineral kingdom in our human culture, which is no coincidence actually, because the diamond is the hardest substance that we know, one of the hardest substances that we've ever found or known on the planet, and yet it is transparent to light. And all advanced matter, all quintessences are essentially crystalline in nature, which means they become transparent to light, and literally physically as well, potentially. So I have no idea what our future forms look like, but I do know that this quintessence of human evolution, this seventh kingdom as we call it, is something like our bodies being conduits and channels of light, also physical light, I imagine, but more likely our senses will become so expanded that we will have sensory apparatus of all the dimensions above us, not just the third dimension and its limited electromagnetic frequencies, which we can capture with our eyes and ears, but our ultra senses, which lie latent, as I've said before. This quintessence runs through certain processes, each stage culminating in a new expansion. The fifth kingdom is a new expansion into another field of life, another field of consciousness, and the sixth and the seventh. So these reaches, these lifts, these evolutions, these expansions simply allow us to hold more of the universe's light or information in ourselves without being destroyed consciously.
Focusing on the earth element, that is solid matter in a physical form, The practitioner begins to understand what makes them unique and assists them to reject conformity within socialized systems. The water element, which is the liquid state, may also represent emotion, which opens the individual to the power of manifestation. The water element lifts the veil on any social or self-programming and increases the practitioner's power of control and feelings of their emotions. The air element, which is the gaseous state, charges the practitioner to make change in the moment with their mind, to create an impact in their lives and in the lives of others through thought. Anyone within their proximity will be affected by these thoughts. The fire element, which is pure energy, the life force, the willpower, it is able to create and destroy. It lifts and pierces through the veils of illusion, which shrouds a practitioner's understanding of reality. It is important to realize that other people's reality and perceptions may not be your reality and perceptions, or their true reality and perceptions.
The practice of alchemy, from my perspective, is a matter of aligning the elements within the physical body, the emotional body, and the mental body. We look back through history. Most spiritual traditions have had reference to the four elements of fire, air, water, and earth. These are the building blocks of creation. So in that process, we want to analyze our physical body, our actions, our emotions, and our mental, to look at how those elements are influencing each of those aspects of who we are. And by understanding the elemental balance within the physical body, the astral body, or the mental body, we can then bring those elements back into equilibrium so we can attain stillness. And that's really, from my perspective, the process of alchemy and how we can use alchemy to basically transform our lives and become the best versions of who we are.
Alchemy deepens our relationship with the elements that make us. We can meditate with them, we can communicate with them, we can take their wisdom into our lives. And for me, I've always had a really deep relationship with water. I feel water and the emotions. I feel like it connects me to my soul. And through the surfing, it gave me so much, emotional relief through my teen years and also joy. And I knew there was this kind of relationship between our feelings and water. And when I heard of Dr. Emoto and saw his work, it was like a lightning bolt of truth for me. And I ended up meeting this great man, and I saw his work, and I knew the truth of this. You love having these beautiful crystalline patterns, and it showed the geometries and the beauty of the higher frequencies to allow light to refract in accordance with sacred geometric miraculous patterns, and the darkness kind of just is like this sludge that just stops everything. That was important evidence for me, and I really looked into the work of Victor Schauberger and the ability of the vortex to structure water. And I was actually involved in a venture that was looking to try and get people more accepting of water vortexing. It was going to give out these products in poor areas. And we did testing in a laboratory, GDV, gas discharge visualization testing, and you could clearly see that the water that went through the vortex was kind of like this bright, shining light, you know, compared to the tap water and the bottled water and so forth.
So in this world of the known four elements, alchemy's relation to these four elements is the relation, is in essence its entirety. The four elements are the means by which alchemical processes unfold. So we have to understand just briefly what these four elemental principles stand for. And to break that down, we have to go back into the esoteric understanding or the Hermetic understanding of of the makeup of the world, the makeup of the universe, in fact, because as above, so below, all things are made in the same way. And that's what it means in the Bible, by the way, when it says man is made in the image of God. It just means that that which is made in a certain way is made in the same way in every dimension. There are only two major elemental principles, and that is fire and water. Fire and water are the quintessential sources of polarity in the universe. We call that plus and minus. We call it father, mother. We call it light, dark. We call it electricity, magnetism. We call it expansion, contraction. We call it any number of myriad things. We call it spirit and matter. You can go on and on and on and on. I could probably speak for hours just reiterating words of how these two things form from the above as below into, and these two things are still the same, the water and the fire principle. And in essence, there are only also two movements in the universe. And those two movements, in the entire universe, only two movements. And that is expansion and contraction. And we have that, the fire principle, denoting the yang, masculine will aspect of the divine, is expansive in nature. And we have on its counterpart in the yin, the magnetic, the dark, we have the water contraction energy. And these two principles are the principles by which all things are made, sustained, and destroyed. Now, the air principle is actually a balancing principle between fire and water. So, air contains both heat and moisture, for example. It can hold both. It's an intermediary between hot and cold, between fire and water, between electricity and magnetism. So in the human being, look at our biology. Let's take our crown chakra or the head space and put around that the fire aspect, the yang aspect of existence, which represented mostly by our cerebrum and our neofrontal cortex, and the whole cerebral spinal system as well. But it's centered here. Then we have around the solar plexus the entire aspect of water. Energetically, this would be the heart. So metaphysically, we would have it around the mind, the 5D aspect, which is, this is the 5D center of our physical being, where we receive and transmit 5D frequencies, which we call thoughts. And at a metaphysical level, the water aspect is from the 4th D, from the astral plane, which we say put a circle around the heart. But in our physical bodies, these are located slightly offset, so the water system is actually in the solar plexus. Okay, whereas all our digestive fluids happen, and we digest through water principles. Even though it's chemical fire, it's also a watery principle. This we also can see how water can contain fire and fire can contain water. So in between these two, the lungs. This is the intermediary between fire and water in our body. So let's come to the fourth element. What is the principle of earth? And what role does it play when everything is made, sustained and broken with the expansion and contraction principles, with the air element as an intermediary, as a balancer, should we say, holding things in balance? The earth element is simply the manifestation principle of the universe. So you take an idea, for example, and the manifestation principle is putting that idea through pen onto paper, or typing it into a keyboard. This is a manifestation principle, and that's earth energy. Earth energy is an element in itself, and it basically isn't an active element. It's more like in religion, the Holy Spirit. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Another interesting trilogy there. So the Father, the Son represent the fire, the water, and the Holy Spirit actually represents the earth principle. Manifestation down through dimensions. So let's call it the universal blueprint takes place at a very, very high level. And through the earth element, this blueprint is transduced down into lower densities and clothed in those densities. Should we say that spirit wears the garment of lower density?
incorporated knowledge from the astrology discipline, and due to this, many alchemical emblems or symbols connected to the celestial planetary bodies, each planet believed to preside over a metal and an energy with the planet's location and its adjacency to other planets, altering the said metal's composition. This is the Kabbalistic tree of life, which represents consciousness and superconsciousness and depicts the planetary order. The planet Earth, also known as Gaia or terra firma, allows humanity and all life forces such as the animal, plant and mineral kingdoms to become attuned with its seasons, cycles and other life forces present that in our world ensure a balance which occurs through the exchange of energies. This exchange results in a divine celestial connection. Silver is the moon's metal. Its composition and movement, when altered, affects the tides, the oceans, and the rivers on Earth. The moon symbolizes emotion and character and represents sensitivity, intuition, inclination, and openness. The planet Mercury. Mercury is the metal which is known as quicksilver. It's used in thermometers and barometers for quickly measuring and identifying pressure and temperature changes. Mercury's composition, when altered, allows the spirit mind to work in conjunction with the mental mind. The planet Mercury depicts oneself as a communicator, messenger, and distributes knowledge between the various planes, planets, and dimensions of existence. This planet symbolizes mind. Energies from the planet Venus, derived through its metal copper and the divine feminine, may alter relationships. The personal attribute of endurance, the ability to overcome issues, and being able to conquer fear go hand in hand with the planetary energy. Venus symbolizes love, nurturing, and attraction. It represents beauty, eloquence, elegance, and art. Gold is the sun's planetary metal and is regarded by most alchemists as the most revered of all the metals associated with the solar system. If gold's composition is altered, a person may project through feelings onto another person, animal or plant, or even within an object. Gold is a phenomenal electrical conductor. It's associated with such deities as Helios and Ra. The sun holds the universal life force and represents the energy of the ego, identity, and at its heart, consciousness, and all connections to the life force. Iron is to the red planet Mars and its main metal. Its composition, when altered through the fire, affects the personal attributes of awareness, motivation, strength, growth, and enthusiasm. This occurs to an individual through the assignment of judgment, control, and limitation placed upon personal excesses. Mars represents both conflict and resilience. The largest planet in our solar system is the gas giant Jupiter, also known in Macedonian Greek as Zeus. In Norse, it's known as Thor, and in Sanskrit, Guru, or the Great Teacher. Its planetary energies are linked to the building of civilizations. The feminine aspect of Jupiter relates to the goddess culture, connected to each of the goddesses such as Hera, Juno, and Freya. When altered, Jupiter's planetary metal tin's composition affects the balance of cultural harmony. Saturn is a gas giant that is also known as the Reaper. The term Satan comes from Saturn, and the day Saturn's Day, or Saturday. Also, which is an interesting fact, is that it comes from the ancient Greek Macedonian word chronos, or time. Lead is Saturn's planetary metal. Its composition, when altered, affects the planetary energy that controls the etheric Earth aspect. If this aspect is not kept in balance or shielded, then strong governance on Earth will not prevail. Uranium and zinc are Uranus's planetary metals. Their composition, when altered, affects the life force energy, the Kundalini, the primal energy that is connected to the deepest and most spiritual wisdom of all creation, that which is the all-seeing third eye. Uranus is said to symbolize transformation and uniqueness. It represents the alternative, the intuitive, and those who seek to be free. Cobalt and Neptunium are Neptune's planetary metals. Their composition, when altered, affects spiritual or etheric water. This is etheric liquid and is associated with the old gods known as Poseidon, Shiva, Oceanus, and those that carry the trident. The planetary energy allows us to learn more about our inner self and the solar system and all distant worlds. Neptune is a gateway planet that has a connecting frequency to various soul and star system levels. It is said to symbolize empathy and mysticism and is an individual's search for the true divine. The planetary energy, knowledge, and mythology that surrounds the planet Pluto and its pseudonyms such as Hades and the underworld leads to renewal and rebirth due to Pluto being ruled by subconscious or under-earth, inner-earth forces. Pluto is also said to symbolize transformation, but also regeneration, power and death. This is, of course, a simple introduction to the Kabbalistic tree of life, a process, an image that depicts how celestial light may enter the physical, mental, and astral bodies to manifest or enhance a spiritual, ethereal, or akashic state of connection.
All planetary systems and all solar systems, by the way, all sun systems, especially suns themselves, much more than planets, are sources of very intense, very high frequency, very sentient 5D energy. And in fact, multiple dimensional energy, but especially 5D, because we have a resonance with that in our nervous system, and with that in our thoughts and in our brain. Our brain can receive these transmissions. So the astrology is nothing more than an attempt to pattern the influence at 4 and 5D that emanates from certain sun systems in our galaxy, that through our being exposed to, we stand in the influence of. If you take a light, let's take a green light, and you put it above a plant with a certain spectrum in it, the plant will behave a certain way and respond to this energy. If you change that light to a red-blue light, which creates a sort of a purple combination, these interference patterns create a light that the plant will respond differently to, will produce different kinds of growth and different speeds. So we can see that life actually responds to different kinds of electromagnetic frequency by producing different outcomes. Now, our mind sphere, our capacity to think and reason, and the whole left brain hemisphere is receptive to this kind of subtle energy. Modern science hasn't discovered it because we haven't even discovered the fourth dimension yet, let alone the fifth. So that's why, the only reason why we talk about it in themes like this, in esoteric discussions, because modern science is not sufficiently advanced to have created it. It is essentially magic, and in the definition of Arthur C. Clarke, which I love to quote, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
My journey has again reminded me of a really strong interrelationship between sacred ritual and the cosmos. And every month I live the moon cycle, I honor the new moon, celebrate the new moon and the full moon. the Venus transit across our sun, when I experienced that transit, that deeply affected me. It was shown to me how significant these kinds of transits are and how significant they were in ancient times. And for example, I believe the Taj Mahal was constructed during a Venus transit, and Venus is all about beauty, so it raises that prospect that the builder was so affected by it that it awakened that desire for such stunning beauty.
In my opinion, all our lives are interconnected. Our minds are the galaxies, our fingers and toes are the planets, and our organs are the stars that bring us light and life. We are each an embodiment of the universe, and therefore we have the power to improve our lives, our conditions, and our environment at every turn.
So how does a person activate their profound powers? Well, quite simply, they do it through repetitive Hermetic practices that combine physicality, astrology, elemental meditation, and even supernatural ability that they have to create an impact or change upon themselves. We do it through elemental meditations. At the core of each practice is the generation or the building up of electrical and magnetic elements within the body. This is done through breathing and working with the elements, through concentration, which is the focusing of the mind, meditation, that is relaxation, and visualization using our imagination. So let's start with some alchemical practices for the mind. Let's look at reading. Let's look at some physical activity like qigong or tai chi or exercising, stretching, yoga, those sorts of things. Let's look at dowsing, journaling and writing, typing skills, things like that, puzzles, exciting things that would stimulate the mind, as it were. Making sure that you're aware of your astral body and emotions, those sorts of things that can actually activate yourself so you become much more aware of situations and stimuli around you. These practices lead to attaining the powers of self-control, the ability to manifest, as well as other psychic skills, the ability for one to understand, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairalience, clairgustance, their intuition, their ability to be profoundly aware.
Mindfulness, or the practice of being present, is just like alchemy. Through the ritual process, gives you connection.
What we're trying to do is become a silent observer to any thought that enters our mind. Doesn't matter how good or how bad the thought is or how interesting the thought is, you just want to avoid touching or interacting with that thought. So we create a separation between our observing mind and the thought itself. You'll find that for most people in the beginning, this will be a little bit difficult, but if you work at it on a daily basis and you set yourself up a time in the mornings and the evenings where you can sit quietly for 5 minutes and just observe, you create a separation between your mind and your thoughts. So when you do this in the beginning, you'll find the thoughts will speed up on you very, very quickly. They'll get faster and faster and faster. Just allow yourself to work through this process. Don't get disheartened, because eventually, after working through this for some period of time, your thoughts will begin to slow down and you'll find bigger and bigger gaps between the thoughts. But the whole goal of the exercise is to be able to be a completely silent observer without touching or without interacting with any thought that enters the mind for 5 minutes. So try and forget about your daily life. Forget about your world. Forget as much as you can for this 5 minutes. So when you go in with a firm, focused will, and you focus on just maintaining that silent, observing awareness. When you do find yourself interacting with a thought that enters the mind and touching it and creating a story with it, you want to try and catch that as quickly as you can. And again, don't feel any disheartening with that. Just welcome your awareness back to the silent observing and let that thought go and come back to silently watching. We want to keep working through that process of recognizing that we're interacting, let go of the thought, bring it back to observing, and just keep working through that process. You can get yourself a set of beads if you like for this process, just hold them in your hand. And each time you find yourself interacting or touching a thought that enters the mind, you move one bead. So at the end of the 5 minutes, you can come out and say, oh, okay, I touched 50 different thoughts. I interacted with 50 thoughts during that 5 minutes. Tomorrow I'm going to try and do 49. And you keep working through that process until you can maintain that complete silent observing awareness for 5 minutes without interacting or touching any thought that enters the mind. Remember, we're not, in this process, we're not trying to stop the thoughts in any way. You can allow them to be there, but just avoid touching them, avoid interacting with them.
If you have a calm mind, you can also tap into your energy body, so that can make you feel more zen, more connected to where you are, calmer. The other thing is that most people actually think that they're their thoughts. You're actually a consciousness underneath that. It's a bit like if you have a glass of red cordial, people think, oh, okay, this is what I am, but you're actually the water. And that water, as we all know, is also linked to the ocean. So if you have a practice of mindfulness, you get into the habit of creating an energy flow where you recognise that you're actually your underlying consciousness. Doesn't mean you lose your personality, but let's just say your roots go down into something that's universal and eternal.
Closing the eyes, keeping the head suspended from above, just bringing the awareness to the breath, becoming aware of the physical body, just allowing all the physical body, any tension to dissolve, just relax the physical body completely. Allow everything to relax and fall away. Gently moving the awareness into the emotional body, becoming aware of the emotions. Breathing in the feeling of relaxation in on the in-breath. And then releasing any tension and stress out of the emotional body on the out-breath. Just allowing all the emotions to settle and become completely relaxed. Gently moving the awareness into the mental body, into the mind. Again, drawing in the feeling of relaxation directly into the mind. And allow any stress or tension within the mind to fall away on the out-breath. Just allowing all the thoughts to settle. And the goal of the exercise is to maintain a completely silent observing awareness without touching or interacting any thought that enters the mind. Bring the willpower up, focus completely on the exercise, and just avoid touching any thought that enters the mind.
Alchemical practices for the body may include harmonization immersion in bodies of water, the elements of nature, general exercise such as martial arts, Tai Chi, Qigong, high hydration, the absorption of water and liquids, high quality, staying on an unprocessed food diet, as well as attaining regular sleep patterns, and waking up in one's dreams and realizing one's dreaming. This will give one a profound awareness of the other side, the astral planes and other greater planes such as the Vana and Atmic planes of consciousness. Well, these practices of the body lead to acute self-awareness and, most importantly, the ability to see reality beyond personal perception.
So martial arts and alchemy share a very distinguished past, and in the way that martial arts and alchemy really are one of the same thing. Every move that you make, every process that you develop through martial arts is transmutated through the actual act and the action of martial arts. It's very ancient, and it's really at the foundation of a way of being as well. The flow, connecting into your chi, and then allowing that to transform in movement and defense in my particular case. And the martial arts is just literally alchemy.
Lucid dreaming or phasing occurs when an individual becomes aware that they are dreaming during a dream. Ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle, in his treatise on dreams, appears to be the first official record of a lucid dreaming experience, as it describes a moment of self-awareness during a dreamscape. The term lucid dream has been attributed to Frederick van Eden, a Dutch psychiatrist who wrote a 1913 paper titled A Study of Dreams. So I hear you now ask, why attempt to lucid dream or phase? The reason I practice this alchemical art is that over time you realize that you are a spirit in a body. You free yourself from the fear of death and you gain new worlds to explore. There are several processes and techniques to achieve lucid dreaming. Some people are naturals and travel through the astral planes each night. Personally, I prefer to use the phase method promoted by Michael Raduca due to its tried and tested effectiveness and simplistic approach. In particular, the indirect method, which is performed upon the body awakening while the brain is just coming out of the REM sleep, which is of course means that the door of the other realms is still ajar. Pick a night prior to a weekend or a day off from work. Go to bed at your usual time and then set an alarm for 6 hours time, go to sleep. 6 hours later, turn off the alarm and get out of bed. Clean your teeth, drink a glass of water, or read a few pages of a current book. Before 50 minutes has expired, get back into bed and set your intention to lucid dream. This process will get your melatonin to the correct level. Focus your attention on how you're going to wake up without moving your physical body and fall asleep once more. When you wake up the second time, don't move. It is important not to open your eyes and to keep your intention at the forefront of your mind. When you're ready, try to separate from your physical body. To do this, use kinesthetic visualization. Simply visualize yourself standing up, rolling out, or levitating. It should feel like a normal physical movement. You should intuitively know how to do this. It's important not to overthink during this stage of the process. There is not a typical dreamscape. No single dreamscape fits all. This sacred space is only limited to your imagination. There are several visualization techniques that may be used to assist separation. Firstly, visualizing that you are rotating from one side to the other. Secondly, swimming the backstroke in a pool of water and noticing the arch of your arms as you pull water towards and then past your body. Thirdly, rubbing your hands together close to your eyes. Fourthly, imagine waving your hands and feet. Think jazz hands. And lastly, picturing yourself climbing up a rope. Each technique is done between 3 to 5 seconds, and once the relevant sensations become tactile, separations is achievable.
The alchemical practices for the soul or the astral body, which are meditation, deep breathing, varied spiritual understandings of different religions, philosophies and practices, plus creativity. Your imagination is key here, going beyond the norm, going through and understanding the deeper aspects of other cultures and ways of life. These practices of the mind, body and soul provide and lead to self-actualization, self-realization, higher awareness, heightened understanding, yet ultimately what we all search for, divine connection. In the beginning, we generally do what's called the meditation of the silent. And as we move from the silent, we move into more energetic meditations. Things such as the elements, fire, air, water, and the earth. We can bring these elements of the universe within us to take on a particular nature within ourselves. We can connect to the stars. We can talk to the atomic structures. We can communicate with animals, plants, crystalline structures, and even to the cosmos. This is some of the aspects of just the beginning levels of meditation and some of the advantages that it can give you in your life. Whenever you're in an aspect of stress or upset, best to try and take a couple of deep breaths, take some air in, breathe, calm down.
Meditation is one of the best ways to calm our mind storms and dissolves the walls of our unawareness. It gives us permanent access to happiness, mental peace, and life energy, and opens the real power of our mind. Morning meditation is more potent than a cup of coffee. Starting the day with a 20-minute meditation practice activates the parasympathetic nervous system and releases energy-boosting endorphins. By consciously focusing for a few minutes every day, we can become more vigilant and aware of our thoughts and emotions and find it easier to replace the negative automatic thoughts with positive ones.
Well, for me, meditation isn't so much about getting a clear mind. I use it to actually tap into energy, because for me, if the energy changes, then you enter a different reality anyway.
So as we close our eyes, just gently focus on the air flowing to your whole being. Just relax. Keep your attention on the task of the air flowing right down into the tips of your fingers, flowing through your chest, into your abdomen, down through into your thighs, down to your lower calf, and down to the tips of your toes. Imagine the air flowing and moving around your whole being as you are calm, gently breathing in rhythm. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And repeat in your own time, in your own rhythm. I am in harmony with my inner self. I am in harmony with my inner self. I am in harmony with my inner self, keeping that steady rhythm and flow. Let it be that my mind is calm and balanced. Let it be that my mind is calm and balanced. I'm in harmony with the highest laws of nature. Through my life force and the presence within, I'm attuned to my higher self, the peace, the joy, and the love flow throughout my whole being. And let peace, joy, love and bliss flow throughout my home and my family. Sound has always held a profound influence over our lives. From the rhythm of our heartbeat to the symphony of nature, it resonates within us, connecting us to the very essence of existence. Through the marvel of Nikola Tesla's toroidal harmonic energy activation resonance circle, more commonly known as the arc, we will embark on a journey of transformation. The arc differs from more traditional sound therapeutic methodologies, as it emits frequencies that interact with the energetic architecture of the body, activating dormant potential and facilitating deep restoration. The arc is a testament to Tesla's brilliance and his unwavering commitment to unraveling the mysteries of energy and vibration, as well as the interconnectedness of sound and consciousness. It is a sonic sanctuary, an ethereal space where frequencies merge, creating a profound sense of balance and harmony within the human mind, body, and soul, and generating the magic or divine frequency. Tesla, the revolutionary inventor and visionary, understood this intrinsic connection and sought to harness the harmonizing potential of sound for the betterment of humanity. At the heart of the arc lies the concept of toroidal energy fields, a dynamic force that permeates the universe. Inspired by nature's toroidal forms, the arc acts as a conductor, gathering the primal vibrations that surround us and channeling them into a therapeutic symphony. Find a quiet and comfortable space where you can set up and engage with the arc without distractions. Lay out 6 sound devices, one at each corner of a 3 by 3 meter hexagon. Each sound device emitting one of the 6 transformative frequencies: 180 Hz, 270 Hz, 360 Hz, 450 Hz, 540 Hz, and 630 Hz. Once the arc is bathed in sound, take a few moments to center yourself, focus on your breath, and set an intention for your experience. Stand or sit in the center of the arc, in the middle of the toroidal energy field, and embrace the sacredness of this divine space. Allow yourself to become attuned to the energy and vibrations within the environment. Visualize yourself surrounded by a vibrant, pulsating energy field. Close your eyes and tune into the soundscape within the arc. Relax your body and mind. Surrender to the transformative power of sound. Allow the remedial frequencies to penetrate your being. Feel the vibrations permeating every cell, releasing any tensions or blockages that may be present. Embrace any emotions, sensations, or insights that emerge, knowing that they are part of your journey to self-realization and divine knowledge. After your time with the Ark, take a few moments to reflect on your experience. Notice any shifts in your energy, emotions, or state of being. Offer thanks for the restoration and rejuvenation you have received.
If I could share one insight with the world on alchemy, it would be that it provides a distinct connection to the divine.
One of the things now in the last few years which has really accelerated for me is the connection with cosmic consciousness, and to connect with basically bringing source light down onto the earth plane into a harmonious relationship with the earth's light. I feel myself somehow as a conduit for this, and for now it's about some of us moving into our light bodies as we walk the earth. So it's a very, very exciting time to be here, and it feels like the veils are lifting in accordance with the ancient prophecies. So it's amazing.
I will say that alchemy will play an ever-increasing role in human culture, human science, and human evolution, simply because we've only just begun to unlock this latest cupboard of mysteries, some of which contain alchemical secrets and alchemical phenomenon. But as we come to identify the realms of nature that extend upwards from us, that we partake in, that we participate in, as we become more conscious of that participation, astrally, i.e. emotionally, mentally, we will begin to understand and see around us alchemy operating non-stop. This transmutation, this process of light ever penetrating matter responding with resistance, slowly adapting, slowly accommodating, slowly also receptive, although resistant matter is also receptive, inherently malleable like clay, like wet clay, formable and adjustable. It just does this energetically with the force of evolution, or the intent of evolution, which is the creation of the highest kingdom in the universe, which can hold all of the universe's vibrations inside it. So there is no question that alchemy will play an increasing role. Pseudoscience, it will only stay as long as this mainstream science addiction plagues our society and constricts it and suffocates it under the guise of promoting it and prolonging it.
Through alchemy, the magic of transformation works for me. my loved ones, and my clients. It will work for you too, if you're open to it.
There is a deeper aspect of all of us that we can tap into, and it's just a matter of this alchemy system, or working with energies and the elements and those kinds of things. It gives you a definitive gateway, and it's not the only gateway. There's countless other systems that you can practice to tap into your higher self, or the higher aspect of who you are. But the alchemy system in particular, it really gives you the tools to analyze the mental body, analyze the emotional body, analyze the physical body or actions, and really bring those things into alignment. And the process of alchemy and equalizing the elemental imbalances within inside of us is what allows us to touch different levels of reality and really tap into those deeper aspects of who we are and gain a deeper understanding. And we all want deeper understanding. We all want to be happy. Everyone's searching for happiness in their own way.
Quantum physics has its roots in occult alchemy regarding zero-point gravity, particle wave theory, and also quantum resonance. However, individual people need to be aware that mainstream science, biology, physics, and chemistry has been limited to that which has been released to the public through mainstream media and other powerful institutions. I feel alchemy won't become a mainstream science for quite a while because of the phenomenal knowledge it gives people as it connects all the dots of super science and the arcane magic with the deepest secrets of the Earth's true history.